All right, hello everybody. I'm just setting up the chat here real quick. So, yeah, welcome to another Slowdown Sunday. I'm gonna start putting either a picture or like a title of what I'm doing for the streams on the thumbnail, because I realized too late that apparently you can't change the thumbnail picture for your stream after the stream. It's like, oh crap. Oh well, now I know. Just applying some lotion. Even though it's April, we've had a couple of cold snaps around here, and it's drying out my skin. Also, got the cats a new automatic cat feeder, and neither of them really know what to do with it at this time. So, today we are going to be reading some more from Dracula, and if you remember from last week's stream, we ended on Dr. Stewart sending some telegrams to Van Helsing, and at first the telegrams were encouraging, saying, hey, everything's fine, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, she's making a downturn, and you need to come up here right now. A little bit of a IPA. I also was on the Genuine Comics stream earlier today at 2 o'clock. I think I'll add a link to that stream because it was a very fun time. Got to talk a little bit more about my comic book Next Evolution, which is live on Global Comics. So, set this up. I need to update this slideshow. Time moves forward. Alright. Alright, so we are starting with a letter from Dr. Stewart to Arthur Holmwood. That's Lucy's fiance. The 6th of September. My dear Art, my news today is not so good. Lucy this morning has gone back a bit. There is, however, one good thing which has arisen from it. Mrs. Westenra was naturally anxious concerning Lucy, and that's her mother, and has consulted me professionally about her. I took advantage of the opportunity and told her that my old master, Van Helsing, the great specialist, was coming to stay with me, and that I would put her in his charge, conjointly with myself. So now we can come and go without alarming her unduly, for a shock to her would mean sudden death, and this, in with difficulties. Oh, come on. No, you are not tired yet, Heather. Would mean sudden death, and this, in Lucy's weak condition, might be disastrous to her. We are hedged in with difficulties, all of us, my poor old fellow, but please God, we shall come through them all right. If any need, I shall write, so that if you do not hear from me, take it for granted, and I am simply waiting for news. In haste. Yours ever, John Stewart. Dr. Stewart's Diary, 7th of September. The first thing Van Helsing said to me when we met at Liverpool Street was, have you said anything to our young friend, the lover of her? No, I said. I waited till I had seen you. As I said in my telegram, I wrote him a letter simply telling him that you were coming, that Miss Westenra was not so well, and that I should let him know if need be. Right, my friend, he said. Quite right. Better he not know as yet. Perhaps he shall never know. I pray so. But if it be needed, then he shall know all. And my good friend John, let me caution you. You deal with the madmen. All men are mad in some way or another. And inasmuch as you deal discreetly with your madmen, so deal with God's madmen too, the rest of the world. You tell not your madmen what you do, nor why you do it. You tell them not what you think. So you shall keep knowledge in its place, where it may rest, where it may gather its kind around it and breed. You and I shall keep as yet what we know here and here. He touched me on the heart and on the forehead, and then touched himself in the same way. I have for myself thoughts at the present. Later I shall unfold to you. Why not now? I asked. It may do some good. We may arrive at some decisions. He stopped and looked at me and said, my friend John, when the corn is grown, even before it has ripened, while the milk of its mother earth is in him, and the sunshine has not yet begun to paint him with his gold, the husbandman, he pull the ear and rub him between his rough hands, and blow away the green chaff, and say to you, "Look, he's good corn. He will make good crop when the time comes." I did not see the application and told him so. I also do not see the application. What the hell is with that story? I think this is what Overly Sarcastic Productions was saying, that Helsing does not understand English metaphors or how to use English in the same way, so he's a little goofy. For reply, he reached over and took my ear in his hands and pulled it playfully, as he used to long ago to do at lectures, and said, "The good husbandman tells you so then because he knows, but not till then. But if you do not find the good husbandman, dig up his planted corn to see if he grow. That is for the children who play at husbandry, and not for those who take it as of the work of their life. You see now, friend John, I have sown my corn, and nature has her work to do in making it sprout. If he sprout at all, there's some promise, and I wait till the ear begins to swell." He broke off, for he evidently saw that I understood. Well, I sure as hell don't still. So is he saying he's waiting for the situation to unfold more for him to harvest what he can? I mean, I understand the Dr. House conclusion of, it's not lupus! But, I don't know, I just feel like not a great idea to hold back on details. Then again, they are dealing with a supernatural threat, so he might not immediately believe him when he says, "Oh, it's vampires." You are always a careful student, and your casebook was ever more full than the rest. You were only student then, now you are master, and I trust that good habit have not fail. Remember, my friend, that knowledge is stronger than memory, and we should not trust the weaker. Even if you have not kept the good practice, let me tell you that this case of our dear Miss is one that may be, mind, I say may be, of such interest to us and others that all the rest may not make him kick the beam, as your people say. I think he means kick the bucket. Yeah, because the Dutch were seen as to be very awkward people way back in the day. Take then good note of it. Nothing is too small, I counsel you. put down in record even your doubts and surmises. Hereafter it may be of interest to you to see how true you guess. We learn from failure, not from success. When I described Lucy's symptoms, the same as before, but infinitely more marked, he looked very grave, but said nothing. He took with him a bag in which there were many instruments and drugs, the ghastly paraphernalia of our beneficial trade, as he once called it. In one of his lectures, the equipment of a professor of the healing craft. When we were shown in, Miss Westenra met us. She was alarmed, but not nearly so much as I expected to find her. Nature, in one of her beneficent moods, has ordained that even death has some antidote to its own terrors. Here, in a case where any shock may prove fatal, matters are so ordered that, from some cause or other, the thing's not personal. Even the terrible change in her daughter, whom she is so attached, did not seem to reach her. It is something like the way Dame Nature gathers round a foreign body an envelope of some insensitive tissue which can protect from evil that which it would otherwise harm by contact. Blech. If this is to be an ordered selfishness, then we should pause before we condemn any one of the vice of egoism, for there may be deeper roots for its cause than we have knowledge of. I used my knowledge of this phase of spiritual pathology and laid down a rule that she should not be present with Lucy or think of her illness more than it was absolutely required. She ascended readily, so readily that I saw again the hand of nature fighting for life. Van Helsing and I were shown up to Lucy's room. If I was shocked when I saw her yesterday, I was horrified when I saw her today. She was ghastly, chalkily pale. The red seemed to have gone even from her lips and gums, and the bones of her face stood out prominently. Her breathing was painful to see her or hear. Van Helsing's face grew set as marble, and his eyebrows converged till they almost touched over his nose. Lucy lay motionless and did not seem to have strength to speak, so for a while we were all silent. No, stop being tired. Then Van Helsing beckoned to me, and we went gently out of the room. The instant we had closed the door, he stepped quickly along the passage to the next door, which was open. Then he pulled me quickly in with him and closed the door. "My God," he said, "this is dreadful. There is no time to be lost. She will die for sheer want of blood to keep the heart's action as it should be. There must be transfusion of blood at once. Is it you or me?" Oh yeah. But way back then, blood transfusion was considered like the hot new thing. So they were just handing out blood transfusions like candy, regardless of whether or not you were the same blood type, because they did not know blood type back then. So yeah. Be happy you are in the 21st century. "I am younger and stronger, Professor. It must be me." "Then get ready at once. I will bring my bag. I am prepared." I went downstairs with him, and as we were going, there was a knock at the hall door. When we reached the hall, the maid had just opened the door, and Arthur was stepping quickly in. He rushed up to me, saying with an eager whisper, "Jack, I was so anxious. I wrote between the lines of your letter and have been in an agony. The dad was better, so I ran down here to see for myself. Is not that gentleman Dr. Van Helsing? I am so thankful to you, sir, for coming." When first the professor's eyes had lit upon him, he had been angry at any interruption at such a time. But now he took in his stalwart proportions and recognized the strong young manhood which seemed to emanate from him. His eyes gleamed. slightly sociopathical. Without a pause, he said to him gravely as he held out his hand, No. Stop it. I am not tired yet. Sir, you have come in time. You are the lover of our dear miss. She is bad, very bad. Nay, my child, do not go like that. For he suddenly grew pale and sat down in a chair, almost fainting. You are here to help her. You can do more than any that live, and your courage is your best help. What can I do? Asked Arthur hoarsely. Tell me, and I shall do it. My life is hers, and I would give my last drop of blood in my body for her. The professor has a strongly humorous side, and I could, from old knowledge, detect a trace of its origin in his answer. My young sir, I do not ask so much as that. Not the last. I think I like Anthony Hopkins' line a little bit better when Arthur says, Please, I love her. I'll give her my last drop. And he's like, Your last drop? Well, you're very welcome here then. Just like the most sociopathic way to go about it. What shall I do? There was fire in his eyes, and his open nostril quivered with intent. Van Helsing slapped him over the shoulder. Come, he said. You are a man, and this is a man, and it is a man that we want. You are better than me, better than my friend John. Arthur looked bewildered, and the professor went on by explaining in a kindly way. Young Miss is bad, very bad. She wants blood, and blood she must have, or die. My friend John and I have consulted, and we are about to perform what we call a transfusion of blood, to transfer from full veins of one to the empty veins which pine for him. Like every single time this part comes up in the Dracula movie, I have to look away. I'm not good with needles and blood. I'm fine with like seeing splatter flicks, but I can't stand needles, and especially needles that take blood. I don't like it at all. Alright, John was to give his blood, as he is the more young and strong than me. Here Arthur took my hand and wrung it in silence. But now you are here, and you are good than us, old or young, who toil much in the world of thought. Our nerves are not so calm, and our blood not so bright as yours. Arthur turned to him and said, If you only knew how gladly I would die for her, you would understand. He stopped with a short choke of his voice. Good boy, said Van Helsing. And the not so far off, you will be happy that you will have done all... In the not so far off, you will be happy that you have done all for her you love. Come now and be silent. You shall kiss her once before it is done, but then you must go, and you must leave at my sign. Say no word to Madame. You know how it is with her. There must be no shock. Any knowledge of this would be one. Come. We all went up to Lucy's room. Arthur, by direction, remained outside. Lucy turned her head and looked at us, but said nothing. She was not asleep, but she was simply too weak to make the effort. Her eyes spoke to us, then, that it was all. Her eyes spoke to us. That was all. Never mind. Van Helsing took some things from his bag and laid them upon the little table out of sight. He mixed a narcotic, and coming over to the bed, said cheerily, Now, little miss, here is your medicine. Drink it off, like a good child. See, I lift you so that to swallow is easy. Yes? She had made the effort with success. It astonished me how long the drug took to act. I think that's still a thing today with pharmaceuticals. Some drugs take a little while to act. Unless it's something like laughing gas or anesthesia, where that shit just... you're out like a light. This, in fact, marked the extent of her weakness. The time seemed endless until sleep began to flicker in her eyelids. At last, however, the narcotic began to manifest its potency, and she fell into a deep sleep. When the professor was satisfied, he called Arthur into the room and bade him strip off his coat. Then he said, "You may take that one little kiss while I bring over the table. Friend John, help to me." Okay. So neither of us looked whilst he bent over her. Van Helsing turned to me and said, "He is so young and strong, and of blood so pure that we need no defibrillate. Defibrillate? What the hell does he mean by that?" Hold on, I'm looking into the appendix in the back. No, stop it, bad book. Alright, so defibrillate, the process of removing fibrin, a protein compounded substance from the blood. Well, how the heck did they do that back then? Did they do that back then? Did they even care to do that back then? Because even in the 80s, they didn't really care about whose blood was being donated, so long as blood was being donated, which definitely came to bite people back in the ass when it came to AIDS, but we're not getting into that. That is a whole other story. Sorry, I'm lighting something on fire right now. Alright. Then with swiftness, but with absolute method, Van Helsing performed the operation. As the transfusion went on, something like life seemed to come back to poor Lucy's cheeks, and through Arthur's growing pallor of joy of his face seemed absolutely to shine. After a bit I began to grow anxious, for the loss of blood was telling on Arthur, strong man as he was. It gave me an idea of what terrible strain Lucy's system must have undergone, that what weakened Arthur only partially restored her. But the professor's face was set, and he stood watch in hand, with his eyes fixed now on the patient and now on Arthur. I could hear my own heartbeat. Presently he said in a soft voice, "Do not stir an instant. It is enough. You attend to him. I will look to her." When all was over, I could see how much Arthur was weakened. I dressed the wound and took his arm to bring him away. Ugh. Even reading that is just like, no, I don't like this. When we bring him away, when Van Helsing spoke without turning round, the man seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. "The brave lover, I think, deserves another kiss, which he shall have presently." And as he had now finished his operation, he adjusted the pillow to the patient's head. As he did so, the narrow black velvet band, which she seemed to always wear around her throat, buckled with an old diamond buckle which her lover had given to her, was dragged a little up and showed a red mark on her throat. Arthur did not notice it, and I could hear the deep hiss of indrawn breath, which was one of Van Helsing's ways of betraying emotion. You see, that's how you know they are a close, like senpai and student relationship, where he can tell, like, certain audible sounds that his master makes. It's like, oh, he's feeling this, oh, he's feeling this. He said nothing at the moment, but turned to me, saying, "Now, take down our brave young lover. Give him of the port wine and let him lie down a while. He must then go home and rest, sleep much and eat much, that he may be recruited of what he has so given to his love. He must not stay here. Hold a moment. I may take it, sir, that you are anxious of result. Then bring it with you that in all ways the operation is successful. You have saved her life this time, and you can go home and rest easy in mind that all that can be is. I shall tell her all when she is well. She shall love you none the less for what you have done. Goodbye. When Arthur had gone, I went back to the room. Lucy was sleeping gently, but her breathing was stronger. I could see the counterpane move as her breast heaved. But the bedside sat Van Helsing. By the bedside sat Van Helsing, looking at her intently. The velvet band again covered the red mark. I asked the professor in a whisper, "What do you make of the mark on her throat?" "What do you make of it?" "I have not seen it yet," I answered, and then and there proceeded to loosen the band. Just over the external jugular vein there were 2 punctures, not large, but not wholesome looking. There was no sign of disease, but the edges were white and worn looking, as if by some titration. Hold on. Rubbing or bruising, that's what that word means. It at once occurred to me that this wound, or whatever it was, might be the means of that manifest loss of blood, but I abandoned the idea as soon as it formed, for such a thing could not be. The whole bed would have been drenched to a scarlet with the blood which the girl must have lost to leave such a pallor as she had before the transfusion. "Well," said Van Helsing. "Well," said I can make nothing of it." The professor stood up. "I must go back to Amsterdam tonight," he said. "There are books and things there which I want. You must remain here all the night, and you must not let your sight pass from her." "Shall I have a nurse?" I asked. We are the best nurses, you and I. You keep watch all night, see that she is well fed, and that nothing disturbs her. You must not sleep all night. Later on we can sleep, you and I. I shall be back as soon as possible, and then we may begin." "May begin?" I said. "What on earth do you mean?" "We shall see," he answered as he hurried out. He came back a moment later and put his head inside the door and said, with a warning finger held up, "Remember, she is your charge. If you leave her, and harm befall, you shall not sleep easy hereafter." Alright, so the 8th of September. Okay, I am confused. Does Stoker not know how long it takes for someone to get from Amsterdam to England and back? He does know Amsterdam is in the Netherlands, right? So what, does he think it's just a quick little carriage ride? A couple of hours away? Alright. The 8th of September. That's still Stuart's diary, by the way. 8th of September. I sat up all night with Lucy. The opiate worked itself off towards dusk, and she waked naturally. She looked different being from what she had been before the operation. Her spirits were even good, and she was full of happy vivacity, but I could see evidences of the absolute prostration which she had undergone. When I told Miss Westenra that Dr. Van Helsing had directed that I should sit up with her, she almost pooh-poohed the idea, pointing out her daughter's renewed strength and excellent spirits. I was firm, however, and made preparations for my long vigil. When her maid had prepared her for the night, I came in, having in the meantime had supper, and took a seat by the bedside. She did not in any way make objection, but looked at me gratefully whenever I caught her eye. After a long spell, she seemed sinking off to sleep, but with an effort seemed to put herself together and shook it off. This was repeated several times, with greater effort and with shorter pauses as the time moved on. It was apparent that she did not want to sleep, so I tackled the subject at once. "Do you not want to go to sleep?" "No, I am afraid." "Afraid to go to sleep? Why so? Is it the boon that we all crave for? It is the boon we all crave for." Not if you were like me. If sleep was to you a presage of horror." "Presage of horror? What on earth do you mean?" "I don't know. Oh, I don't know. And that is what is so terrible. All this weakness comes to me in sleep until I dread the very thought." "But my girl, you may sleep tonight. I am here watching you, and I can promise that nothing will happen." I can trust you." I seized the opportunity and said, "I promise you that if I see any evidence of bad dreams, I will wake you at once." "You will? Oh, will you really? How good you are to me. Then I will sleep." And almost at the word, she gave a deep sigh of relief and sank back asleep. Alright, I need to blow my nose real quick. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Where are you? You are in here. I know you're in here. Alright. Still on to Stuart. All night long I watched by her. She never stirred, but slept on in a deep, tranquil, life-giving, health-giving sleep. Her lips were slightly parted and her breast rose and fell with the regulation of a pendulum. There was a smile on her face, and it was evident that no bad dreams had come to disturb her peace of mind. In the early morning her maid came, and I left her in her care and took myself back home, for I was anxious about many things. I sent a short wire to Van Helsing and to Arthur, telling them of the excellent result of the operation. My own work, with its manifold errors, took me all day to clear off. It was dark when I was able to inquire about my esophagus patient. The report was good. He had been quite quiet for the past day and night. A telegram came from Van Helsing at Amsterdam whilst I was at dinner, suggesting that I should be at Hillegom tonight, as it might be well to be at hand, and stating that he was leaving by the night mail and would join me early in the morning. Alright, 9th of September. I was pretty tired and worn out when I got to Hillegom. For 2 nights I had hardly had a wink of sleep, and my brain was beginning to feel that numbness which marks the cerebral exhaustion. Lucy was up and in cheerful spirits. When she shook hands with when she shook hands with me, she looked sharp in my face and said, "No sitting up tonight for you. You are worn out. I am quite well again. Indeed I am, and if there is to be any sitting up, it is I who will sit up with you." I would not argue the point, but went and had my supper. No. Lucy came with me, and enlivened by her charming presence, I made an excellent meal, and had a couple glasses of more than excellent port. Then Lucy took me upstairs and showed me a room next to her own, where a cozy fire was burning. "Now," she said, "you must stay here. I shall leave this door open, and my door too. You can lie on the sofa, for I know that nothing would induce any of you doctors to go to bed, whilst there be a patient above the horizon. If I want anything I shall call out, and you can come to me at once." I could not but acquiesce, for I was dog-tired, and could I love how that's in quotations. I could not have sat up had I tried. So on her renewing her promise to call me if she should want anything, I lay on the sofa and forgot all about everything. Lucy Westenra's diary, 9th of September. I feel so happy tonight. I have been so miserably weak that to be able to think and move about is like feeling sunshine after a long spell of east wind out of a steel sky. Somehow Arthur feels very, very close to me. He's your fiancé. He should feel close to you. I seem to feel his presence warm about me. I suppose it is that sickness, that weakness are selfish things, and turn our inner eyes in sympathy on ourselves, whilst health and strength give love rein, and in thought and feeling he can wander where he wills. I know where my thoughts are. If Arthur only knew. My dear, your ears must tingle as you sleep, as mine do waking. Oh, the blissful rest of last night. How I slept with that dear, good Dr. Stewart watching me. Tonight I shall not fear to sleep, since he is close at hand and within call. Thank everybody for being so good to me. Thank God. Good night, Arthur. Why isn't Arthur there? I mean, I know he has his dad, but why isn't he there? September. I was conscious of Professor's hand on my head and started awake all in a second. That is one of the things that we learn in an asylum, at any rate. "And how is our patient?" "Well, when I left her, or rather when she left me," I answered. Huh? I feel like that sentence is incomplete. "Come, let us see," he said, and altogether we went into the room. The blind was down, and I went over to raise it gently, whilst Van Helsing stepped, with his soft, cat-like tread, over to the bed. Putting myself to sleep reading. Alright. As I passed As I raised the blind and the morning sunlight flooded the room, I heard the professor's low hiss of inspiration, and knowing its rarity, a deadly fear shot through my heart. As I passed over, he moved back, and his exclamation of horror, "Gott in Himmel!" Alright, what the hell does Gott in Himmel mean? Because I hear Himmel and I'm thinking of Frieren. Oh, God in heaven. Oh, Frieren means, or Himmel means heaven. Oh, I wonder if the author of Frieren knew that. Need no enforcement from his agonized face. He raised his hand and pointed to the bed, and his iron face was drawn in ashen white. I felt my knees begin to tremble. There on the bed, seemingly in a swoon, lay poor Lucy, more horribly white and wean-looking than ever. Even the lips were white, and the gums seemed to have shrunken back from the teeth, as we sometimes see in a corpse after a prolonged illness. Van Helsing raised his foot to stamp in anger, but the instinct of his life and all the long years of habit stood to him, and he put it down again softly. "Quick," he said. "Bring me the brandy." I flew into the dining room and returned with the decanter. He wetted the poor white lips with it, and together we rubbed palm and wrist and heart. He felt her heart, and after a few moments of agonizing suspense said, "It is not too late. It beats, though feebly. All our work is undone. We must begin again. There is no young Arthur here now. I have to call on you yourself this time, friend John." As he spoke, he was dipping into his bag and producing the instruments for transfusion. I had taken off my coat and rolled up my shirt sleeve. There was no possibility of an opiate just at present, and no need for one, and so, without a moment's delay, we began the operation. More transfusions. I don't like that. After a time, it did not seem a short time either, for the draining away of one's blood, no matter how willing it be given, is a terrible feeling. Van Helsing held up a warning finger. "Do not stir," he said, "but I fear that with growing strength she may awake, and that would make danger, oh, so much danger. But I shall precaution take. I shall give hypodermic injection of morphia." He proceeded then, swiftly and deftly, to carry out his intent. The effect on Lucy was not bad, for the faint seemed to merge subtly into the narcotic sleep. It was with a feeling of personal pride that I could see a faint tinge of color steal back into the pallid cheeks and lips. No man knows till he experiences it what it is to feel his own lifeblood drawn away into the veins of the woman he loves. So he is still in love with her. The professor watched me critically. "That will do," he said. "Already," I remonstrated. "You took a great deal more from art." To which he smiled, a sad sort of smile, as he replied, "He is her lover, her fiancé. You have work, much work, to do for her and for others, and the present will suffice." When we stopped the operation, he attended to Lucy, whilst I applied digital pressure to my own incision. I lay down whilst I waited his leisure to attend to me, for I felt faint and a little sick. Yeah, you should. By and by, he bound up my wound and sent me downstairs to get a glass of wine for myself. As I was leaving the room, he came after me and half whispered, "Mind, nothing must be said of this, for if our young lover should turn up unexpected, as before, no word to him. It would at once frighten him and enjealous him too. There must be none." So, I think Van Helsing is a little bit more keen on the whole weird relationship situation here. When I came back, he looked at me carefully, then said, "You are not much the worse. Go into the room and lie on your sofa. Rest a while. Then have much breakfast and come here to me." I followed out his orders, for I knew how right and wise they were. I had done my part, and now my next duty was to keep up my strength. I felt very weak, and in the weakness lost something of the amazement that had occurred. I fell asleep on the sofa, however, wondering over and over again how Lucy had made such a retrograde movement, and how she could have been drained of so much blood, with no sign anywhere to show for it. I think I must have continued my wonder in my dreams, for sleeping and waking my thoughts always came back to the little punctures on her throat and the ragged, exhausted appearance of their edges, tiny though they were. Lucy slept well into the day, and when she woke, she was fairly well and strong, though not nearly so much as the day before. When Van Helsing had seen her, he went out for a walk, leaving me in charge with strict injunctions that I was not to leave her for a moment. I could hear his voice in the hall asking the way to the nearest telegraph office. I am falling asleep as I read right now. Oh, I don't want to go to sleep. Lucy chatted with me freely, and seemed quite unconscious that anything had happened. I tried to keep her amused and interested. When her mother came up to see her, she did not seem to notice any change whatsoever, but said to me gratefully, "We owe you so much, Dr. Seward, for all you have done, but you really must now take care not to overwork yourself. You're looking pale yourself. You want a wife to nurse and look after you a bit. That you do." She spoke. Lucy turned crimson, though it was only momentarily, for her poor wasted veins could not stand for long such an unwonted drain to the head. The reaction came in excessive pallor, and she turned imploring eyes onto me. I smiled and nodded, and laid my finger on my lips, which, with a sigh, she sank back amidst her pillows. I should not be this tired. Van Helsing returned a couple hours, and presently said to me, "Now you go home and eat much and drink enough. Make yourself strong. I stay here tonight. I shall sit up with little miss myself. You and I must watch the case, and we must have nothing other to know. I have grave reasons. No, do not ask them. Think what you will. Do not fear to think even the most not probable. Good night." Alright, let's see if I can get to this chapter, and then we'll put on a video, because I am extremely tired right now, and I should not be, because I slept in well enough. In the hall, two of the maids came to me and asked if they or either of them might not sit up with Miss Lucy. They implored me to let them, and when I said it was Dr. Van Helsing's wish that either he or I should sit up, they asked me quite piteously to intercede with the foreign gentleman. Yeah. I was much touched by their kindness. Perhaps it is because I am weak at present, and perhaps because it was on Lucy's account that there are similar instances of woman's kindness. I got back here in time for a late dinner, went my rounds, all well, and set this down whilst waiting for sleep. It is coming. The 11th of September. This afternoon I went over to Hillingham, found Helsing in excellent spirits, and Lucy much better. Shortly after I had arrived, a big parcel from abroad came for the professor. He opened it with much impressment, assumed, of course, and showed a great bundle of white flowers. "These are for you, Miss Lucy," he said. "For me? Oh, Dr. Van Helsing." "Yes, my dear, but not for you to play with. These are medicines." Here Lucy made a weary face. I think it's weary. "Nay, but they are not to take in a deconation or in nauseous form, for you need not to snub that so charming nose. Or I shall point out to my friend Arthur what woes he may have to endure in seeing such beauty that he loves so much distorted. Ah, my pretty miss, that bring the so nice nose all straight, huh? Aha, my pretty miss, that bring the so nice nose all straight again." Okay. "This is medicinal, but you do not know how. I put him in your window. I make pretty wreath, and hang him round your neck, so that you will sleep well. Oh yes. They, like the lotus flower, make your troubles forgotten. It smells so like the waters of life, and of the fountain of youth that the conquistadors sought for in the Floridas, and find him all too late." Whilst he was speaking, Lucy had been examining the flowers and smelling them. Now she threw them down, saying with a half laughter and half disgust, "Oh, Professor, I believe you are only putting up a joke on me. Why, these flowers are only common garlic." "Yeah, garlic." To my surprise, Van Helsing rose up and said with his sternness, his iron jaw set, and his bushy eyebrows meeting, "No trifling with me, I never jest. This is grim purpose in all I do, and I warn you that you do not thwart me. Take care, for the sake of others, if not for your own." Then seeing poor Lucy scared, as she might well be, he went on more gently. "Oh, little miss, my dear, do not fear me. I only do for your good. But there is much virtue to you in those so common flower." "There is much virtue to you in those so common flower." Okay. "See, I place them myself in your room. I make myself the wreath that you are to wear. But hush, no telling to others that make so inquisitive questions. We must obey, and silence is part of obedience. And obedience is to bring you strong and well into loving arms that wait for you. Now sit still a while. Come with me, friend John, and you shall help me deck the room in my garlic, which is all the way from Haarlem, where my friend Vanderpoel raise herb in his glass houses all year. I had to telegraph yesterday, or they would not have been here." Again, I'm starting to wonder if Stoker doesn't understand how long travel works. We went into the room, taking the flowers with us. The professor's actions were certainly odd, but not to be found in any pharmacopoeia that I heard of. First he fastened up a window and latched them securely. Next, taking a handful of the flowers, he rubbed them all over the sashes, as though to ensure that every whiff of air that might get in would be laden with the garlic smell. Then, with the wisp, he rubbed all over the jamb of the door, above, below, and at each side, and round the fireplace in the same way. It all seemed grotesque to me, and presently I said, "Well, Professor, I know you always have a reason for what you do, but this certainly puzzles me. It is, well, we have no septic here, or he would say that you were working some spell or keep out an evil spirit. Perhaps I am, he answered quietly, as he began to make the wreath which Lucy was to wear around her neck. We then waited whilst Lucy made her toilet for the night, and when she was in bed, he came and himself fixed the wreath of garlic round her neck. The last words he said to her were, "Take care you do not disturb it, and even if the room feel close, do not tonight open the window or the door." "I promise," said Lucy, "and thank you both 1,000 times for all your kindness to me. Oh, what have I done to be blessed with such friends?" As we left the house in my fly, which was waiting, Van Helsing said, "Tonight I can sleep in peace, and sleep I want. 2 nights of travel, much reading in the day between, and much anxiety on the day to follow, and a night to sit up, without to wink. Tomorrow in the morning, early you call for me, and we come together to see how our pretty miss so much more strong to my spell which I have worked. Ho-ho!" He seemed so confident that I, remembering my own confidence 2 nights before, and with the baneful result, felt awe and vague terror. It must have been my weakness that made me hesitate to tell it to my friends, but I felt it all the more like unshed tears. Right. I'm gonna stop reading there just because I'm making myself so tired right now. I'm so sorry for being tired, folks. But instead, we'll shift to some educational videos, and we'll do some educational videos about Dracula. That sounds fun, right? All right. All right. Alright, Dracula analysis. Let's see what we can get from here. Wait, did I watch that video? I don't remember watching that video. Oh my gosh, thug notes. Oh. Okay, guys, you have to indulge me here. I used to watch Thug Notes in college, and I absolutely adored them.
Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like getting Bateman when you need Batman.
Stop. Whoa, cat lady. Time out.
Nice fanny bag.
Thank you. Rude.
Don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm.
Huh? No! Fuck off! Go away! Go away!
It's Halloween, and this week
Oh my
I'm
God.
sinking these bad.
Why am I having such a freak? This stupid computer. Let's try this again. Good news.
Boom, motherfucker! It's Halloween, and this week I'm sinking these bad boys in your mama with Dracula by Bram Stoker. Now the story of my boy Drac ain't told like most, cause we getting the beat on this blood-sucking player from a bunch of letters and other scribbles. Now it all started when Jonathan Harker arrived in Transylvania to take care of some business. But when the local po folk here, he headed to the fat crib of Count Dracula, they all start wigging out. On the real, the Count seemed like your regular uptown gangster. Until
I don't know if Uptown Gangster. He's like a kooky old man, not Uptown Gangsta.
John cuts himself shaving. Oh, When Josh started recognizing that Castle Dracula is about the craziest damn place he ever seen, he like, I gotta get my white ass out of here. Later, Harker's woman Mina heading out to visit her homegirl Lucy, and this Dibs milkshake bringing all the boys to the yard.
Yippers! That's why she was considered a whore back then.
But since two of them just scrubs, she decided to get down with Arthur. Gets real creepy when some hoopty-ass boat from Castle Dracula gets wrecked on shore. The only thing left are about 50 boxes of dirt, a big-ass pooch that up and disappears, and a dead body strapped to the ship. One night, Lucy starts sleepwalking like she do, and Mina falls into a graveyard where some hood-ass player getting all up in her shit. That mystery brother disappeared, leaving 2 bite marks on Lucy's neck, and now she getting sick as hell. So Seward hit up his old Teach Van Helsing, who take one look at her crusty ass and like, yeah, something's up right here. To save her,
I miss Thug Note so much. This was such a fun series.
Van Helsing, Seward, Quincy, and Arthur straight open up a vein for this bride, but that ain't do a damn thing, and she dies. When Van Helsing hear that some crazy crackhead been busting up little kids, he goes to Lucy's boy toys and drops a bomb on their ass.
Boy toys.
They need to murk Lucy again, because she's become a vampire. After tearing that bitch up, Van Helsing's boys crew up with Mina and John to go after the big dog himself, Count D. But before they can make a move, Dracula gets to jump on Mina, makes her sip some of his vampire juice, and now she one step closer to going out like Lucy. Our boy's only hope of saving Mina is to ice the Big D. And the only way to do that is to sniff out every one of his dirt nap boxes and take them bitches out. Dracula trucks his pasty ass back to Transylvania, and eventually Van Helsing and the gang catch up to him and shank that sucker. So when Mina and John have themselves a little G of their own, they name him after the whole crew and call him Quincy, since their boy went down fighting the Big D. Dick. Even though a blood-sucking white boy sounds scary to this thug, that ain't all that was making those Victorians piss themselves. To them, the real monster was seeing a sexually liberated woman.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. The Victorian era was very, 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 very strict when it came to female sexuality. Not so much male sexuality, because if I remember correctly, I'm remembering this from my history classes, men were allowed to cheat on their wives, and it was perfectly okay for men to, sow their wild oats. But for women were expected to just be pious nuns until it's ready to be for a baby to pop out. And it scared Victorians at the time that a woman could take charge of her own sexuality. So, yeah.
On her thing, that girl Lucy's the perfect example of what put skid marks in the Victorians' jaws. Not only is she so fly that she got 3 horn dogs hollering at that ass, but she's also exchanging fluids with 4 dudes on the DL. And what's the problem when a woman's sexuality is let off the chain? The tight-ass image of the Victorian mother falls to and we see a sexy vampire Lucy straight tossing babies. And if they can't control her, they gotta kill her. And to this G, that's one of the reasons they able to save Mina. She's the true blue Victorian wifey who just wanna help her hubby out. But that ain't all, B. One of the reasons this book continues to scare brothers today is cause Dracula always reminding us that things may not be what they seem. Dracula may talk real fancy and be decked out in sweet swag like your average rich Victorian, but he really a stone cold blood-chugging gangster. You can't judge a book by its cover, man. And in a society that's so set on breaking a brother down just by looking at him, there ain't nothing more scary than someone who defies stereotypes. Nah, I mean, you do not let your eyes see nor your ears hear, and that which is outside your daily life is not of account to you. Do you not think there are things which you cannot understand, and yet which are? That some people see things that others cannot? Want to see, hear, and understand? You gotta hit that subscribe button, yo. Catch you later. Peace.
Yeah, I used to watch Thug Notes all the time before Wisecrack went, well, crack. Yeah, ever since they got rid of the original crew, Wisecrack has just been not as fun. You know what I mean? Alright. So, we, instead of just focusing on Dracula, we do a vampire analysis, like vampires in general. Carmilla. Wait, there are Confederate vampires? What the hell are you talking about? What the fuck do you mean, Confederate vampires? Oh yeah, Nosferatu I would consider to be like the cousin to Dracula, because Nosferatu was supposed to be Dracula, but of course they made several changes to it. Alright, let's check out this one.
One would think that modernity and the Enlightenment would be the great period in which all monsters, spirits, devils, and goblins, and gods for that matter, would, after millennia of their rule, finally go extinct. That rationalism in the new science and social emancipation would certainly spell the doom to superstition, magic, and eventually religion itself would.
Okay, this is gonna be a hot take, but the Enlightenment was completely naive, thinking that they would completely get rid of superstition and religion. Like, they, honest to God, thought, oh, we're rational humans now. We'll just replace all of religion, blah, 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 blah. But first off, people are not going to give up their religion. They're just not. And you're just going to have to get over that. And secondly, while you may not completely believe in all the religious stories, there is something to be learned from them, and there is something to be learned in trusting in God. So just stop being a Redditor. That's all I can say there.
Wither on the vine. And yet, it would be precisely modernity and Enlightenment values that would provide us one of the most terrifying and enduring monsters of the contemporary period. The vampire. But the vampire of today, from Stoker to Anne Rice to, God forbid, the Twilight series.
Okay, I am going to die on this hill. Twilight wasn't that bad. I read the first Twilight book. I tried to read the second Twilight book, but then I threw it across the room because it infuriated the hell out of me. But the first Twilight book, it wasn't bad. It's corny, it's cheesy, but it's a paranormal romance for preteen girls. And I was a preteen girl when I first read it. So it's fine if you don't like that kind of thing. I'm just saying that, okay, compared to especially indie published erotica or indie published romances where they're like way more shaky on their morals than Twilight ever was, Twilight is actually not that bad compared to everything else. So can we all just calm the hell down about Twilight already? Okay, how long ago was this video? Come on. Down, 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 down. Esoterica. A year ago, people stopped bitching about Twilight like 5 years ago. Ish.
Is a far cry from the earliest vampire reports in history. Let's rewind the clocks. Before Carmilla, before Varney the Vampire, before Dracula, before Polidori, back to the hinge of the 18th century to explore a few of the first accounts of the living dead preying upon the regular living, and how the vampire craze that erupted in the heart of Enlightenment Western Europe left its mark on both philosophy and theology. I should also mention that Philip over at Let's Talk Religion and I were chatting back and forth about what we wanted to do for our kind of Halloween-themed episode, and independently, we both landed on vampires. So, great minds, demented minds, think alike, apparently. So you should also make sure to go check out Philip's episode on vampires as a kind of general introduction to the topic. Of course, I'll be doing my esoterica thing, diving deep into the early history of vampires and the theological and philosophical impact they would have in the Enlightenment. But also, I often get the question, are you going to cover any Islamic mysticism here at Esoterica, like the Shams al-Ma'arif? The answer, generally speaking, is no, not really. And the reason why? So you can check out Philip's channel, Let's Talk Religion. He covers Islamic mysticism and Islamic occultism and the Islamic occult sciences wonderfully. So if you're interested in that topic, again, another reason to check out Philip's channel over at Let's Talk Religion. If you're interested in magic, hermetic philosophy, alchemy, Kabbalah, or the history of the occult, or just strange things in history like vampires, make sure to subscribe and check out my other content on topics in esotericism. Also, if you want to support my work of providing accessible, scholarly, and free content on topics here in esotericism for free on YouTube, I'd hope you consider supporting my work on Patreon with a one-time donation over at PayPal, perhaps. You can use the super thanks option below the video.
What's his icon? That looks like an Aztec symbol there. Like one of the Aztec characters. I wonder what that is.
Or you can pick up some of our cool black metal style merch over at the store tab. But now, let's turn to the origins of the vampire. I'm Dr. Justin Sledge, and welcome to Esoterica, where we explore the arcane in history, philosophy, and religion.
This intro is putting me to sleep. I have no idea why I'm so tired right now. I'm so sorry, guys.
Of course, the vampire legend was not born out of whole cloth. Tales of malevolent spirits that attack the living from beyond the grave are, frankly, ancient. Ditto those of creatures that consume the blood of the living, like the ancient Lamia, and even revenants who are said to emerge bodily somehow from their tombs. I mean, even ancient Ishtar threatens to unleash the living dead to consume the living if she's not allowed through the gates of the underworld. Tales like this are extremely ancient. However, none of these beings can be said to be, well, vampires in a strict sense. Even the mysterious term, vampire, borrowed from some very unknown Slavic roots into French through the etymology, as I mentioned, just remains debated to this day, reveals that there probably was no singular Ur-vampire legend, that it was a cluster of folklore with regional variants abounding from the Upirs of the Balkans to the Vrykolakas of the Aegean. Lots of species of the genus vampire.
Well, I mean, every culture has their version of a vampire. Like, I know the Chinese have their own version of a vampire, where they're basically just ghouls who run around and drink blood. And then you have the Aztecs, who have a whole god that's basically a vampire. Well, if you want to make the argument that all of the Aztec gods are basically vampires, considering all of them require blood sacrifice, then there you go. But I think it's just humanity is fascinated by the concept of a monster that survives off of blood. I think that's it, pretty much.
In some of the legends, the vampire is said to physically rise from the dead and attack the living, often starting out with family members and then fanning out through the community, with those being attacked sometimes becoming vampires themselves. In some narratives, they even attack livestock, and the people that eat that livestock become vampires. The nature of those attacks vary from blood drinking, as is common, but it's just as common for them to be strangled or suffocated by the vampire while sleeping. In other cases, the entity is just bothersome, pinching people in the night. In other cases still, the physical body of the vampire remains in the grave the entire time, but a spectral, mystical body goes out on the prowl, somehow mystically filling the vampire's body and even their grave with gore. Though the earliest narratives about the ravenous undead are quite different from these, though just as unnerving. The vampire legend, especially as it becomes increasingly codified through the 18th century, went through a period of rather rapid mutation, so getting back to the earliest legends is quite difficult. However, some of those earliest accounts of the restless dead are primarily not concerned with them rising from their graves to attack the living, but how they actually rose from the grave in some sense and attacked themselves within the grave. Among
Where did that come from?
the earliest collections of vampire accounts, such as the 1679 Dissertatione Historico-Philosophica de Masticatione Mortuorum by the theologian Philip Rohr, and the more famous by the Reverend Michael Raft in his 1734 De Masticatione Mortuorum in Tumulus, both refer to the chewing dead, the dead that chew. These are detailed accounts of the recently buried gibbering, scratching, and grunting like pigs within their graves. Further and similarly disturbing are accounts in which the dead have been exhumed for a wide range of reasons, only at that time that they appear to have somehow gotten free of their burial shrouds. And worse, they've consumed some of those shrouds. And
Could also have been the case where someone was buried alive. Because that happened a lot too, where people were buried alive. I still remember this story of this one. I think he was a bishop or a priest, but he was being considered for sainthood. And when he died, he was buried, obviously. But for whatever reason, they decided to exhume his body. And when they opened the coffin, they saw obvious scratch marks on the inside of the coffin lid. So he was alive and was trying to claw his way out of his own coffin. And they decided, okay, he can't be a saint now because obviously while he was trying to claw his way out of his own grave, he was cursing to God. And because he cursed God, therefore he cannot be a saint. Which I think is actually kind of a very fucked up way to look at it. I mean, it wasn't his fault he landed in that grave, and I don't think even God would have been happy that he was put in his grave prematurely. In fact, God, nowadays, maybe not in the Old Testament, but nowadays, God is a hell of a lot more understanding and forgiving. So he probably would have understood, okay, this situation is fucked up, so I'm not going to hold it against you that you cursed me a few times because your idiot fellows buried you before making sure that you were actually dead.
in other cases, it's even more disturbing. The dead have gnawed at their own arms, or even partially consumed their own. They've even eaten part of their own entrails. Aside from the horrible possibility of premature burial, these texts are theologically worrisome, a sign of the debates that are going to rage through the 18th century about the nature of vampires and their, frankly, theological implications. Note, both of these texts were prepared by preachers, ministers, and theologians, with their chief issue here being the premature resurrection of the dead. The dead aren't supposed to come back inside of their graves, at least not yet. Of course, the Bible has instances in which the dead are physically returned to life, but the general theological consensus of that time, and now among Catholics, was that such an event will occur only at the end of time, at the final day of judgment. Thus, the physical return of the dead is a theological problem, not just a...
Okay, I'll link the rest of this video down below, but this is going a little too deeper than what I was expecting. The hell? really don't want to do extra history because they tend to, like, twist the shit out of things, but maybe they'll have something interesting I can comment on.
Literature gives us the opportunity to experience lives, perspectives, and worlds different from our own. Though remember, friend, a good story has many readings, and this is but one.
Yeah, that's him trying to cover his ass, being like, yeah, we might be pulling this completely out of our ass, but it's our interpretation, so you can't blame us.
Okay, picture this. You just got a new job as an English solicitor, a kind of lawyer, and are on a sweet business trip abroad. Turns out some count in Transylvania wants to buy property in London, and he needs you to do the paperwork. But you're also newly engaged, so you're keeping a travelogue of your journey to eventually share with your bae. Because, Instagram's not a thing yet. Except everyone's acting a little off. Villagers cross themselves when you say where you're going, and a woman hangs a crucifix around your neck. Quaint rustic superstitions, I suppose. And when the Count's big sinister coachman comes to take you through the Borgo Pass,
who is slightly implied to be the coachman himself. Like, the coachman is heavily implied to be Dracula in disguise.
Doesn't really seem interested in conversation, because he's more vibing dismissing packs of wolves with a gesture or chasing blue ghost fires? Okay, charming local beliefs. But it's only when you meet Count Dracula in his crumbling medieval castle that you realize what this really is. The best travel journal ever! Still wish we could take selfies, though. Thanks so much to CuriosityStream for helping us raise the stakes of today's literary tale. So you haven't read Dracula? Well, Halloween's the perfect time to catch up, because despite Bram Stoker writing it in 1897, this one still slays today. But what's really cool is instead of it being told from one perspective, Dracula is what's called an epistolary, a story told through in-universe documents. In this case, pieced together from a series of diaries, letters, newspaper articles, and even recordings on wax cylinder phonograph. And it's written that way so that you, the reader, feel like you're investigating something that actually happened. Kinda like a 19th century version of a found footage horror film. So, for this episode, instead of putting you in the shoes of a character from the novel, let's cast you instead as an investigator as the novel intends. Ooh, looking good. Very 1800s true crime chic. You begin your investigation by reading the diary of solicitor Jonathan Harker, chronicling his trip to Castle Dracula. At first, the Count appears like a
They couldn't cast the dude in the wheelchair as any of the characters because none of the characters are in a wheelchair, and it would just be frickin' awkward. That's what they do in these episodes, where they cast whoever they're talking to as one of the characters. And let's just say it's obvious what Extra Credit's political leanings are.
Hospitable, if eccentric man, but soon things get strange. One day, as Harker's shaving and accidentally cuts himself, Dracula swoops in and leers at the blood with an almost animalistic hunger. It's this creepy occurrence that prompts Harker to start writing his journal in shorthand, to keep its contents secret. And soon he realizes he's a prisoner, not a guest. He sees this old dude crawling down walls like a creepy Spider-Man, and runs into 3 uncomfortably beautiful and terrifying brides who try to suck his blood until Dracula gives them a child for dinner. Which is right about the time Harker decides to nope on out of there real hard and dive off the castle wall into the river below. At that point, Harker is either too cold or, maybe dead to keep a journal, so continuing your investigation, you move on to reading a captain's log of a ship
Wait a minute, are you just skipping over Lucy and Mina's journals? I mean, yeah, they are a little boring, but you get a little bit more personality from them. Like, why would you skip over Lucy and Mina? They are 2 very important characters.
Transporting boxes of Transylvanian dirt to England. As you do, but it seems as though an unknown animal is picking the crew off one by one, Predator style. Then, the log cuts off abruptly, replaced by a newspaper clipping about a ghost ship running aground in England. A large black dog is seen running from the wreck, and the sole remaining crew member is dead, tied to the ship's
Not just the sole remaining crew member, he was the captain, but going on.
wheel. Next, you read a series of letters between Harker's fiancée Mina and her BFF Lucy.
That all happened before the demeanor came in, but whatever.
Mina is the picture of Victorian womanhood, while Lucy is more modern in love. courting the attentions of 3 men: Arthur Homewood, an aristocrat; John Seward, a psychiatrist who runs an asylum; and Quincy Morris, a man from the exotic, faraway land known as Texas. Ma'am? But she chooses Homewood, and she and Mina go to holiday on the coast, right where that ghost ship conveniently runs aground. Wait, really? Popular vacation destination, I suppose? Soon, the sleepwalking Lucy is wandering out at night, and Mina sees her with a sinister-looking man, but Mina doesn't have time for that, as she gets a letter saying Jonathan's in a hospital in Budapest.
No. No. Mina is very concerned about Lucy. And it takes a while for Jonathan's letter to come to her. And she doesn't feel comfortable about leaving Lucy until she makes sure that Lucy is safe with good care. Why are you making it look like that Mina is the flippant one here? But, okay, I'm not saying that Lucy is a whore. By Victorian standards, she's considered a whore just because she has multiple men who want her and she likes the attention, which qualifies you as being a whore in the Victorian era. But Mina was the more responsible one of the two. She doesn't leave Lucy until she knows that Lucy is okay. Or at least when she thinks Lucy is okay.
Budapest and bails. Your next piece of evidence.
She doesn't fucking bail! Oh my god, she leaves because she loves Jonathan, and she's torn between Lucy and Jonathan. She's torn between them because she loves Lucy as a sister, but she is so devoted to her husband, or soon-to-be husband, Jonathan. So it's not a flippant choice. Why are you making it look like that she's the flippant one?
Is the transcribed phonograph journal of Dr. John Seward, one of Lucy's also-ran suitors. Turns out she's now sick after her vacay, and at a loss, Seward invites his old mentor, Abraham Van Helsing, over from Amsterdam for a second opinion. Now, about Van Helsing. He's, a little out there. He diagnoses blood loss and has all the suitors give Lucy transfusions for some reason that seems weird, all of them doing it. He also, though, puts Scarlet...
So are you going to ignore the context that transfusions were just the thing back then? Blood transfusions were not well understood back then. They didn't know about blood types. They didn't know that you could very potentially kill someone from a blood transfusion because it's the wrong blood type. So, are you really ignoring that? That's so strange.
Garlic everywhere, which, again, seems a little odd. But that night, a wolf appears, terrifying Lucy's mother into cardiac arrest before Lucy wastes away. And that's when Van Helsing lets it drop, telling the 3 suitors that Lucy was killed by a vampire and now is one of the living dead. Heck, she's even risen from her tomb and snacked on a few street urchins. But the quartet ambush Lucy in the cemetery, chase her back to her coffin, and all 3 men who tried to marry Lucy take turns pounding a stake through her. Yeah. If you somehow missed the subtext with all of the transfusions and stakes and bloodlust and beautiful dead ladies, a lot of this book is about sex and gender. But we'll swing back to...
I mean, you could say it's about virtue and more about corruption. It's more about corruption than sex. I mean, with Lucy, the corruptive angle is the sexual angle, yes, but it's more about corruption.
Anyway, Van Helsing and his crew join up with the now married Jonathan and Mina as a vampire hit squad headquartered in Seward's asylum. Their plan is to find the boxes of Dracula's native earth he needs to sleep that have been hidden all around London and destroy them so he can't rest. Meanwhile, Mina stays in the asylum as their archivist, transcribing and organizing all of their clues, letters, and documents into the narrative you're reading now. You're telling me, bud. Wicked meta. But as they're sabotaging Dracula's boxes with communion wafers, the Big Daddy Vamp himself sneaks into the asylum, feeds on Mina, and has her drink his blood, so that when she dies, she'll become a vampire. Not to mention in the meantime, he'll be able to see through her eyes as a spy, so that's kind of a win-win for him. But his dastardly plan backfires when Van Helsing uses hypnosis on Mina to exploit their psychic connection, which lets her track the Count, chasing him down in Romania via the most Victorian method ever, with an intricately planned railway schedule. They split up. Van Helsing and the...
It's not exclusively Victorian, dude. That was just the technology of the time. I mean, have you never seen Western movies where there's railways everywhere? It's not just a Victorian thing, dude.
Almost vampire Mina head to Dracula's castle and kill the 3 brides. Meanwhile, the rest ambush Dracula's servants as they load his coffin into a wagon and destroy him, though Quincy dies in the fight, despite the Count having messed with Texas. But hey, in the epilogue, pretty much everyone left gets happily married, so good? Now, there's a lot of layers to Dracula. As we mentioned, much of it deals with repressed sexuality and gender norms. And Stoker, who some scholars suggest was a closeted gay man, and who made...
What? Huh? What? What? What the fuck are you talking about? Hold on. So your scholars are Salon.com, Grunge, Monstrous Desires Study. Okay, I'm calling bullshit on that. It seems like the only scholars who are claiming that are media websites who are trying to churn out articles for clicks. So there is a very good chance that no, he might not have been gay. So fuck off.
may have been afflicted with syphilis, filled the novel with his anxieties about sex, contrasting attraction and revulsion, danger and desire, the gothic fear of damnation always lying heavy. For instance, we have Lucy, the liberated woman who courts 3 men, is tainted and must be destroyed, whereas Mina, the model of Victorian womanhood, is saved. But while Dracula is best remembered as Gothic fiction, I think what really helps make it such a fun read today is that it's also an early example of a techno-thriller. The hunters beat Dracula with the help of religion, sure, but also with cutting-edge technologies like gramophones, typewriters, Winchester rifles, shorthand, medical science, the telegraph, and again, I can't stress this enough, superior knowledge of train timetables. Not to
Huh? No. No. Dracula is not a fucking techno-thriller. Dracula is straight up a horror novel. If you want to say anything about thriller, it's a supernatural thriller because they're going after a supernatural threat, but it is not a techno horror. Seriously, compare the narrative of Dracula to something like Blade Runner. They're two, like, the way they approach their conflicts is very different. While the people are reliant on technology to communicate with each other, they are also dealing with a supernatural threat. So you are just pulling that completely out of your ass.
To mention, the hunters aren't priests, rather modern professionals. 2 doctors, a lawyer, a man-about-town lord, a schoolmistress, and a cowboy. Even Dracula himself is medicalized, with vampirism being treated like a contagious blood disease, much like syphilis, the most feared Victorian STD. All of which to say is that Dracula still feels fresh today. I mean, it's closer to Jurassic Park than Wuthering Heights. And that's even without getting into all of the other novels, television shows, movies, and games this book has influenced since it first burst out of the coffin. Heck, even tonight, on the evening of this video's release, we're hosting a tabletop game of Vampire the Masquerade, celebrating its 30th anniversary over on our Twitch channel, which is just another serendipitous example of old Drac still influencing content even to this day. So this Halloween, why not sink your teeth into one of the greatest horror novels ever written? Ah, come on. That joke didn't suck that bad, did it? Okay, I'm sorry. It was a mistake.
Alright, we're just going to ignore all of that, but It frustrates me that he twists it in a way to look at Dracula in a more progressive and liberal, like modern sense. And sure, Dracula was new and different back in its heyday, but it is still a product of its time. It's not going to be up to our modern standards. And it's annoying how people try to drag it into modern standards. Like, we saw those articles about the queer elements in Dracula. Oh, was Bram Stoker gay? Oh, look, oh, the queerness. And it's like, what queerness are you talking about? If you're talking about Mina and Lucy and the fact that they did share a room, that was just normal gal pal stuff that happened back then. Because they were two unmarried women, and neither of them wanted to be alone when they slept, so the obvious answer is they sleep in the same room. They weren't sleeping in the same bed, they weren't attracted to each other, but that's such an odd way to go about it. Alright. I think I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream a little bit early, just because I am just so unbelievably tired tonight, and I don't know why, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the hay. But in the meantime, if you liked this stream, hit the like button, share, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!